There's an obvious Mbappe storyline here. You still get noises that he's not going to Real Madrid. You still get noises. I mean, Jules, every week he's here, he's like, well, he has a contract in front of him if he wants to stay at Paris Saint-Germain. Today, there's reports saying, ooh, Liverpool could be in for him, which sounds to me like one of those...
Newcastle?
Stop it with the Newcastle. It sounds like one of those, extraordinary things because, having just... I've got Salah, I've got Mane. I need to figure out whether I'm going to extend them and stuff. I've signed Diaz, but whatever. Can you just talk a little bit about how that was lived in Spain? Because I think it's fair to say that there's a sense of entitlement at Real Madrid and among Real Madrid fans. If you're going to lose this way, better that it's Mbappe that does it to you than Lionel Messi, right?
Absolutely. And genuinely... there's been something slightly strange in the reaction to this defeat in that there's almost been a celebration of defeat, which is something you don't see with Real Madrid. Now, I think celebration is a step too far, and that's why I use the word almost. But I think there was a degree of consolation and comfort and excitement in the fact that they were beaten by Mbappe and the way that they were beaten by Mbappe, because there is a reaction that kind of says, well, look, if this goal means we're not going to win the Champions League this year, that player means we will in the future because he's coming. And there's no doubt in Spain that he's coming. Now, I'm not saying he is. I'm saying that there's an assumption which is not really challenged by anyone in Spain that Mbappe will be at Real Madrid next season. And so that does change the reaction to this. I think we'd have seen a very, very, very different response if it had been 1-0 to Paris Saint-Germain and Messi had scored that goal, not Mbappe. So this is almost something to take kind of joy and celebration from a Real Madrid point of view.
One of the sidelines of the response, and this always gets because it's almost like it's predictable because with Florentino Perez, we're used to reactions, and he doesn't speak out that often, but there's always a sense. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Sid, that he has minions who speak for him, and so
he doesn't need to speak himself.
Exactly. Right. Now, sometimes these minions may be closer or further away from him. Sometimes maybe they don't actually reflect what Florentino says because he didn't say this, but sometimes they speak out. But there have been stories that he's so upset and so disappointed by this defeat that he's decided to go and can Carlo at the end of the season and get Pochettino. Now, we talked about this on the FC show last night. Yeah. I want to get Sid's reaction and your reaction. I think it's impossible to view this without the context of Manchester United because we've had stories all last week about United senior pros supposedly wanting Pochettino. Yeah. And as I'm not going to go on about this too much, but ask yourself, who are the senior pros who United should listen to at this club? Meaning not the guys like Pogba and Cristiano who are leaving or the guys like Varane who've just arrived. Who are they? Because I think on paper there's maybe, two guys who fit that bill?
Should anyone?
One of them is Maguire. Should you listen? Whatever. But that's another thing. So, Sid, can you say, first of all, Sid, the plausibility of this, that Florentino sitting in the stands afterwards says screw this, let's get rid of Carlo, I want Pochettino.
The plausibility of it is very high in the moment, which you think, what's this? That's rubbish. Let's try someone else. But there's a difference between what the reaction is, and this is like football fans in the stands and Florentino, I think one of the things that's sometimes forgotten about him, he's an ultra. He's very kind of well-mannered, smart-suited exterior disguises the way that he is. And so an immediate reaction that says that, yes. An actual plan to do that is a very different thing. Now, obviously, and Ancelotti knew this when he took over. He always knew that there will come a time when he gets sacked. And until then, fine. And Madrid were happy with him 2 weeks ago. And if they're not happy with him now, well, then, of course, that's because results are sliding. That's because there is a sense that that they didn't play well in this game, that they were completely outplayed, but there's still a second leg to come. There's still a long way to go till the end of the season. So this idea that this is the decision taken now, I don't buy it. I buy that this is a comment that he made.
Right.
I've had enough of this, but not a decision that's taken now. The other thing is to put this in its context is that there was always an idea that Ancelotti was kind of a happy coincidence, him turning up at Real Madrid. A chance conversation is what ends up with him at Real Madrid to fill a short-term problem. And at some point, Real Madrid would be looking at a different manager. That is true as well. So that's the context of this. As for Pochettino, well, of course, this is a guy who twice was in a position he thought or he hoped to go to Real Madrid. In at least one of those cases, his escape clause was too high for Real Madrid to agree to, and he'd only just signed it. And Real Madrid's reaction was, "What a bloody idiot! He's the one that closed the door to come into this club." And so there wasn't a huge amount of, if you like, goodwill because of that.
So Pochettino had an escape clause from Real Madrid. Why on earth would you want that?
No. So
it's a release clause. It's basically to get out of his contract.
Yeah, a release clause to get out of his contract.
That's just thinking. That's just thinking.
I can't remember the exact which moment we're talking about here, when the date is, but I think I'm right in saying that, having been not sure about renewing, it was presumably at Spurs, but I'm trying to think when the dates coincide. Having not been sure about renewing, and knowing Real Madrid were interested, and knowing that the best way to facilitate a potential move to Real Madrid was to not renew, he had them renewed, and Real Madrid looked at this as if to say, "You absolute idiot! If you just held on, we could have done this more easily."
Yeah, I love the idea, by the way, of Florentino as like an ultra beneath his suit, like sort of in his head, like sort of like humming, going like Juanito Maravilla and whatever.
Off with his head.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Don, on the subject of Pochettino, I find this remarkable because I'm a huge Pochettino fan. I really think he's an exceptional manager. I also recognize he's not doing a good job in Paris in terms of week in, week out. He hasn't clicked.
Didn't win the league last season.
Yeah, and this season they're going to win it, and he took over halfway through the year last year, to be fair, but still. And I think, as Jules has told us many times, if Pochettino were to go away, Paris Saint-Germain wouldn't be too fussed. If he were to go to Real Madrid, however, they would be like, "Oh, pay up the compensation." Yeah, and I can't see Real Madrid necessarily doing that. Could see United potentially doing that, but it's. Where do you see Pochettino? I mean, when you look at this, when you watch Paris Saint-Germain play, I mean, forget, obviously they were exceptional against Real Madrid. Yeah. But week in, week out, do they look like their team where he's really having an impact?
I don't think they do, Gab. I don't think they do. And I think that's the riddle and that's the mystery of Pochettino. He's got an unbelievable CV in terms of his stocks high. But as I said, and you just said there, he came in halfway through the season last season but didn't win the league in Ligue 1, which is virtually impossible not to win the league. The big prize is always the Champions League. Many managers have gone in there and failed. That's a fact, and it's one of the hardest dressing rooms, I would imagine, to try and secure that Champions League. But his stock's still high. Man United seem to still want him. He's on the radar of Real Madrid. But he's got to start winning things. He's got to start winning the big prizes.
It's funny when you say unbelievable CV, and I get what you mean. And I think I don't.
I mean, in terms of where he thinks or where we all sort of perceive him to be.
Yeah,
without
it's not,
winning the big trophies.
It's not. I mean, if Mourinho were to Zoom bomb our conversation,
absolutely,
he would be like, "Yeah, but what did Pochettino want?"
Exactly. Right? That's what I mean.
You have a point,
of course.
Right?
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.